Hi, I'm Danny Alcocer. Welcome to the Laredoan. On tonight's show, we're going to have a one-to-one conversation with Salo Otero, sports editor for the Laredo Morning Times. From the grill, Ed Herbst will prepare stuffed shrimp. And on the Laredoan Outdoors, we's going fishing with Mike Bates and Chip Harmon. All this and more next on the Laredoan. The Laredoan is brought to you by Schaefer Light, the one beer to have. By H&M Taxidermy. Contact Beto Villarreal at 722-5012 or visit his newly expanded facility at 1305 San Carlos. And by Enter Save Homes, a realistic approach to affordable living. Contact Dan Villarreal at 724-8638.
The finest materials, crafted by the most skilled hands. That's the heritage of quality that goes into every glass of Schaefer and Schaefer Light. Since 1842, Schaefer has used only the finest ingredients to produce that famous flavor that never fades. That honest Schaefer flavor. The one reason that makes Schaefer the one beer to have.
Enter Save Homes, a realistic approach to affordable living.
Not just at the end of every month do we see a savings, but we see it every day.
Enter Save Homes, spacious, solid, and affordable.
If you were going to be investing in your first home, I would definitely go with the InnerSafe panels because they help with the temperature of the home and it's very well insulated, and I have yet had a problem living in my InnerSafe home, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I love it.
Exotics from around the world, no problem. Contact H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos. There's no trophy too big or too small for H&M Taxidermy. You can contact Beto Villarreal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your next big buck, wild hog, bobcat, or any legal game. With over 15 years experience, you can count on quality, prompt, dependable service. Visit H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos or call 722-5012.
Hola, les habla Juan Narváez de Narváez Manufactured Homes. ¿Por qué no ha venido a comprar su casa nueva? Recuerde que es un crimen pagar renta. Si usted quiere casa nueva y terreno, venga hoy mismo. Nosotros tenemos millones de dólares para financiarle su casa con interés y pagos muy bajos. Recuerde que aquí con Juan Narváez no se le cobra por aplicar. Venga y aplique hoy mismo. Del financiamiento nosotros nos encargamos. Pase y visíteme hoy mismo. Estamos situados en 220 West Colton Road.
We now return to the Laredoan. His name is Salo Otero, and his love for sports has made him a top-notch sports editor. But Salo possesses a rare quality in that he gives a lot of his time for local organizations that help the community.
Danny, I was born in the metropolis of Valencia, New Mexico, 18 miles south of Albuquerque. Valencia is a bitty town next to some other big cities like Belén, Los Lunas, El Cerro, Tomea de Lino, and it has no relation to the Valencia Oranges. And I went to school in Albuquerque at Rio Grande High School, the Mighty Ravens, like my brother tends to call it, in LA, which is lower Albuquerque, the South Valley of Albuquerque. After I got out of there, I went to the University of New Mexico, to UNM. When I first came to Laredo, I was wearing a UNM cap that said UNM, and I said, people would say, hey, what does that stand for? Of course, I very promptly got into the act and said, well, it's United, Nixon, and Martin. But I didn't, later I told them that, of course they knew that I was a New Mexican, and I tell them, you guys will be old Mexicans, I will always be a New Mexican. So I was there at UNM for 4 years, from 64 to 68. I worked at the Albuquerque Journal, very commonly known or affectionately known as the Albuquerque Journal, but at the Journal I was a sports writer from 64 to 68. In 1968, I saw an ad in the Albuquerque paper that the Laredo Times needed a sports editor, and really, just for the hell of it, I answered the ad. I was working on a 4-man staff there. I knew that eventually I would want to become a sports editor. The sports editor at the time was a marvelous man by the name of Leroy Bierman, who taught me a lot. He was 32 years old. The next man in line was 28. The next man in line was 26. I was 21 years old, and I said, gee whiz, to get to be sports editor, it's going to take me a while maybe. So I saw the ad in the paper. I answered the ad. They sent me, they called me and they said, we're interested in you. They talked to my boss. He lied a little bit and gave him a good recommendation. And I was 21 years old when I came to Laredo. I arrived here as a sports editor at the age of 21, soon to be 22. And like I tell my son Matthew, I says, you know what that means, Matthew? I've been a sports editor for 20 plus years, and you know what that means? And he says, no, Dad, I've never gotten a promotion. So, you know, I've been here since 1968 as a sports editor of the Laredo Times. And in 85 and 86, I had a chance to, quote unquote, maybe go home. And I did for 2 years. I ended up working in Santa Fe at the New Mexican there for 2 years, but Laredo beckoned me back. And like they say, when you drink from the waters of the Rio Grande, you come back. But little did they know that I was drunk from the waters of the Rio Grande and the waters of the Rio Grande in New Mexico, which are, it's a little clearer there. And as you go down the river, it gets a little muddier, but it's still the water and it's still the Rio Grande, and it's very, very special to me and my family. My son Matthew, who is a historian, says, you know, Dad, the Rio Grande has always been very special to us, very special to our family. Our family settled on the Rio Grande. You and Mom settled, were born in Albuquerque along the Rio Grande, and then you came down the Rio Grande and settled here in Laredo and raised the family. And so it's always been very, very special. Danny, I was in high school at Rio Grande, and my term papers and themes for English class were always along the sports scene. I loved sports, but I was always very small to play sports. You realize when I got out of high school, I was 5'8" and weighed 110 pounds. And at that size, you don't have very much room for 110-pound anything except maybe a wrestler, right? And in New Mexico, high school wrestling was big. But I was just a small kid that liked sports. I used to hang around the ballpark all the time at Old Tingley Field with the Albuquerque Dukes. I used to hang around the University of New Mexico all the time. And so all my themes in school were related to athletics, athletes. I'd interview athletes. I'd talk to athletes and all this. And then as a senior in high school, I had taken just about every class that needed to be taken, and as an elective, I think it was my fourth choice, I just put down journalism. And all the other classes were full. I didn't want to take any more typing because my typing class, I think I typed 20 words a minute and I barely passed the class, so I didn't want to take any more typing. So I ended up in journalism, and when I got into the journalism class, the journalism teacher, Mrs. Upton, whom I learned a lot from also, tells me, Salo, she was reading the roll, right? And she comes to my name and says, Salo Otero, there you are. I've been waiting for you for all these many years. And I says, wow, what is this? And somebody had recommended to Miss Upton that there was a little young punk from San Ignacio Road that used to like sports, and they've always needed a sports editor at the high school newspaper. But I never did take journalism until my senior year, right? And so on my senior year, I took the class. She said, Salo, you're my sports editor. And I said, I'm the sports editor. I've never written a sports story in my life except in themes. Well, that's so, you know sports, and you've written some sports stories, even though you don't call them sports stories. There are sports themes and sports papers and what have you, and you know the sports. I don't know anything about sports. You're my sports editor. And there I became the sports editor of the high school newspaper called La Corriente. That was the name of the paper. And then she tells me, over at the Journal, they hire high school kids to cover games on weekends and that type of thing. Why don't you go over there and talk to Frank Maestas or to Leroy Bierman, and maybe you can get a job there. And I did. Puny little kid over there, and very quiet, and I was scared. And I went to him and I told him who I was, and I says, I'm interested. He says, and they tell me, what are you doing Friday night? And I said, probably going to a high school game here in town. Well, Rio Grande High School was playing in Farmington. You want to cover the game for us? And after the game, call in the details and a little story. And I said, yeah, it's a good idea. So I got on the bus with the cheerleaders and the band and what have you, and went to Farmington that night, about I don't know how many hours from Albuquerque, and covered my first game. Again, I said, gee whiz, I was really enthused but scared at the same time. I called in the information. The next day, it came out in the paper with my byline on it, and wow, I think I made $3 on the story, spent about 10 or 15 to go to the game, but I had my name in the Albuquerque Journal, and boy, that was a big deal for a kid from the South Valley of Albuquerque, and well, I guess for any kid, and it was really, really exciting. And that's how I got started, and from then on, I started covering other sports there in Albuquerque, and then I didn't get on the full-time staff till about 67 or 68, when I was a senior at the University of New Mexico. And then in July of 68 is when I arrived in Laredo. Again, the only person in my family, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, who moved away from Albuquerque, and very scared and by that time I had grown a little bit. I was 6'1", but still weighed 120 pounds. So right away the people here at the office were kidding me. He says, hey, what'd you eat in New Mexico? Lizards? To be so puny and tiny. But so that's when I got here, and basically I've been here ever since and gotten involved in the community very much so, and have enjoyed it, and raised a family of 3 children. My son Matthew, my daughter Laura Lynn, who will be a teacher soon in the United Independent School District, and my son Michael, who is a up-and-coming musician. He says that's what he is. I don't know it yet, but that's what he is. And so, Laredo has been good to me. I've enjoyed it very, very much. And to be in a program called the Laredoan, from a transplanted New Mexican, I know I was talking to you, and I said, hey, but I'm not from Laredo. But now, after being here 20 years, the roots are here, and they've taken, and I think, like my mom says, you make pretty good tea with some roots.
Salo Otero, an outstanding Laredoan. We'll return with more of the Laredoan after a word from our sponsors. Exotics from around the world, no problem. Contact H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos. There's no trophy too big or too small for H&M Taxidermy. You can contact Beto Villarreal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your next big buck, wild hog, bobcat, or any legal game. With over 15 years experience, you can count on quality, prompt, dependable service. Visit H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos or call 722-5012. Enter Save Homes, a realistic approach to affordable living.
Not just at the end of every month do we see a savings, but we see it every day.
Enter Save Homes, spacious, solid, and affordable.
If you are going to be investing in your first home, I would definitely go with the InnerSafe panels, because they help with the temperature of the home, and it's very well insulated, and I have yet had a problem living in my InnerSafe home, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I love it.
The finest materials, crafted by the most skilled hands. That's the heritage of quality that goes into every glass of Schaefer and Schaefer Light. Since 1842, Schaefer has used only the finest ingredients to produce that famous flavor that never fades, that honest Schaefer flavor. The one reason that makes Schaefer the one beer to have.
Let's go to the great outdoors with George George and friends, won't you join us?
This week on George Garza's Gar Outdoor Adventures, it's a special teal season show. Join George along with Tony Herbst of Texas Waterfowl Outfitters for duck hunting at Eagle Lake in East Texas. You'll see spectacular dogs at work retrieving and learn a special delicious recipe on preparing teal duck. George Garza's Gar Outdoor Adventures, Sunday evenings after Newswatch 13 on KBTV.
We now return to the Laredoan.
Welcome to Falcon Lake and beautiful Oso Blanco Lodge and RV Park, where we're going to prepare for you some stuffed shrimp. That's today's menu from the grill. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
From the Grill is brought to you by Ruiz Custom Meats at 2119 East Lyon. Call Polo or Robert Ruiz for all your needs. Try their home-style pit barbecue on weekends, delicious briskets, and shish kebabs. Call them at 724-3013. And by G3 Trailer Manufacturing and Welding in San Ignacio, Texas, makers of the Chuck Wagon. Contact the Gutierrez brothers for your next custom-made trailer, deer blind, or feeder at area code 210-765-9026.
We're going to prepare a shrimp stuffing. For that, we're going to need 2 cups of seasoned breadcrumbs, 1 cup of chopped shrimp, about a tablespoon of chopped onions, a tablespoon of chopped celery, a tablespoon of chopped cilantro, and this is optional. Jalapeno is optional on it, so you can put as much as you want or as little as you want. Now we want to go ahead and mix all the dry ingredients first so we can go ahead and evenly distribute everything. Now we want to use a binding agent, so we're going to use 2 eggs for this. And you got to use your hand for this. That's the only way you can mix this real good. If your stuffing comes out a little too dry, you could add just a little bit of water. Don't forget that a little bit goes a long way when you're making stuffing. This one's just a tad bit too dry, so we'll add a little bit of water. For the stuffed shrimp, we're going to need the stuffed shrimp stuffing. We're going to need some breading, so we're going to use a cornmeal breading that's been seasoned. And we have 6 jumbo shrimp, 10 to 15 count, and they've been sitting in some milk and egg. So we're kind of going to put them aside, drain them a little bit, and then start stuffing them and breading them. A little bit of the stuffing. You kind of want to make this into a little ball. And you want to place it inside the shrimp. You want to close it as much as you can. Our shrimps are stuffed now, so now let's put them in the oil. You want the oil to be hot, and you kind of want to put them in there gently, because if you put them in there, just drop them in there, they're going to break apart. And sometimes they do break apart, so don't worry, they do. You don't want them to stick on the bottom, that's all. Remember that shrimp don't take very long to cook. Once they're golden brown, they're ready. Stuffed shrimp, there's nothing like them. Until next time, this is Ed Herbst from The Grill.
From The Grill was brought to you by Ruiz Custom Meats at 2119 East Lyon. Contact Polo Robert Ruiz for all your needs at 724-3013. And by G3 Trailer Manufacturing and Welding in San Ignacio, Texas. Contact the Gutierrez brothers at area code 210-765-9026. We'll return with more of the Laredoan after a word from our sponsors. Exotics from around the world, no problem. Contact H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos. There's no trophy too big or too small for H&M Taxidermy. You can contact Beto Villarreal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your next big buck, wild hog, bobcat, or any legal game. With over 15 years experience, you can count on quality, prompt, dependable service. Visit H&M Taxidermy at 1305 San Carlos or call 722-5012.
At Newswatch 13, more news for you means just that. More local news, more in-depth reporting, more exclusive reports, more news for you. Only on Newswatch 13, only on KVTV.
We now return to the Laredoan.